Hey there guys, gals, and non-binary pals, it's DMG and welcome back to Blitz, and today we are going to have a back to basics guide on Canal. But before I go into that, I'd like just to go over a few things. The first being that I'm sorry I haven't put content out there in a few days. I have started a new job at a bank, so I've been trying to work out the logistics. Of course, the commute there and back is much longer. As well as the training for the job has required me to drive out to other locations that are much farther, and it has kind of screwed with my time a little bit for Blitz. However, I still will be producing content for you and doing streams whenever I can. Of course, I always do like to play for myself and not play on camera because I just like to, play my game instead of trying to always have the camera on me. Sometimes it's just fun to not worry about the content necessarily, right? I mean, granted, I try not to play differently from when the camera's on me, but as you do know that the recording does lag my device a little bit, so just to be able to play without lag and really try and focus on achieving good numbers is important to me. Being a super uni comes first before being a content producer. So another few things is that I want to thank you all for helping me hit 1,000 subscribers. For those of you that have subscribed so far, I really do appreciate it. It has made the channel quite amazing. It's very nice to know because when I get messages in game, and comes especially when I'm very frustrated with the teams, that someone has watched videos on, let's say, one of my map guides or one of my few tank reviews and has said that it really helped them improve their win rate. And they just understand the game better. So I do hope I can just continue making my subscriber base proud. And if this is your first time here, please hit that like button and the subscribe button if you enjoy what you see. So thanks again, everyone. I really do appreciate the 1,000 subscribers. It is a goal that I have been trying to hit for quite a long time. Or when I first started, I said to myself that I just wanted to hit 1,000. It was like my original goal to see if I could do it, and I did. So I guess here's to 1,000 more, right? Anyways, you guys are here to see back to basics for Canal, so that's what we are going to do today. Now, Canal is one of these maps that is quite large. I wouldn't say call it open, but there's lots of different things you can do on it, and this is one of the most interesting maps for competitive play. But I won't get into that too much. Now, if this is encounter or most of the time supremacy, I'd say that the better side is the AB side. Now, why is that? Well, I'd consider this side definitely the better side for encounter because it's where the cap circle is. So if you win this side, right, and the encounter cap circle is down there right where that rock is that I'm pointing at. So if you win this side, you can protect the encounter cap circle from back here. And you make it really difficult because it's almost like a Fort Despair kind of thing, where if you start capping the base, the enemy team has to drive into your tanks or your tank destroyers, which are sitting back up here, and no one wants to drive into nasty tank destroyers that carry massive amounts of alpha and can fire unspotted, as well as other like medium tanks and some heavy tanks around this area that will be in haul down positions, and it forces the enemy team to charge you in a haul down position, which is always to your advantage. Now, the reason why this works is that they have to come to where B cap and C cap are in order to reset the encounter cap circle. Now, I know that's a little bit hard to think about, as I'm kind of blending supremacy and encounter game modes to kind of explain this cap circle. But this is where the cap circle is. You can sit right here and cap the base. And if you have a tank with a decent turret and a decent front and maybe a little bit of side armor, you can just simply poke out and really put the hurt on people that are trying to push you. Or at least, you know, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, sit back here and just let them push you. Eventually you will proxy spot them, but it's always is better to get this early vision so your team can prepare to see them coming. Of course, you don't want to take any damage when you're back here, because, or at least lose any kind of modules, because it will reset the cap circle, right? And you don't want that. But what I mean by they have to come to the B and C side to reset you is that they have to come through here, or they have to come through here. And what this means is that if they're down there, they're up there trying to shoot you down here, the people behind you way up in the back corner will be firing unspotted and absolutely nuking the living daylights out of the red team. Now, they will also be able to hit tanks crossing through here, but that is also dependent on you being able to spot them. And that's why it's important maybe just have a quick peek sometimes and then back off, or a quick peek and a shot, right, to at least kind of deter them from pushing, knowing that you're still combat capable instead of just solely reliant on a cap win. So that's all really for encounter. That's the whole reason why encounter works on this side. Or this side works on encounter is what I mean to say. The other side was the old meta, and people used to take mediums and fight it out among those two hills, or between those two hills is what I mean to say. However, that meta has passed. Sometimes there are niche situations where it is advisable to call the D side and go this way, but for the most part, it is not always the best. The only time I'd really ever call the D side is if we didn't have any heavy tanks going to the corner, right? Now, I know that sounds kind of odd, but having heavy tanks go to the corner and contest it is oh so important. And if you don't have any armor or HP to kind of feed off of, it's really hard to work the cap side or the A side. So in this case, the D side would be better. Now, Supremacy and Encounter are two different beasts on this map. Supremacy, you can play either side, whereas Encounter, it's always suggested that you go to, or at least in my opinion, at least suggested that you go to the A-B side, or I would just say the A side, right? Now, on Supremacy, the important thing to recognize here is that you need to get bases. Bases are so important on Canal's Supremacy. You can't just go around and try and kill things, right? You at least need to get one base. I'm not talking about as a team. I'm talking about you as a player. Wherever you're going, it needs to be towards a base. Something that's really important that I don't think a lot of people realize, and this goes for Encounter and Supremacy, is that if you have a light tank, medium tank, even a heavy tank, anything but a slow tank destroyer. I mean, you can take quick tank destroyers, but on this Encounter, if this is Encounter, this base isn't here, which means you can go in this bush and let people try and drive to the corner on the other side, and you will nuke them. So if you're wondering a good opening spot to sit at, this is it right here. You'll be able to fire shots unspotted and be able to wreak havoc on the enemy team. Another thing you can do here is there are certain shots available from this location looking into this area as that are not available at this bush because of these stacked up logs. So keep in mind that this is another position that you can use, and it also gives greater distance between the enemy and yourself, so you are even less likely to be spotted. This bush exists on the other side where you can catch people trying to cross to the A corner. So you can sit here in the beginning. You'll most likely be able to reset B from this location, but right after you fire, you need to pull back because you will be spotted by anyone capping B. If they're all just crossing and this is Encounter, you'll be able to get a few shots here in this little corridor or opening, and then you'll also be able to get shots here. So these are the two openings that you need to watch for. In this bush right here, and then this opening, this small opening from this house to where the crane is. Now, something else that is very, very important is that the distance it takes for you to go to this A cap right here, this is a longer draw distance from the spotting bushes than it is on the other side. Now the other side is much harder to cross into A than this side. This side you can take things like the 268 and get up here unspotted, whereas if you try and take the 268 from the other side, you still may be unspotted, but it will take you a longer time to get to the A cap. Now, the A cap is very important because once you cap A, it is very difficult to take A back. So if you can get there quickly in a tank and take A, that is really good, because then you have good hull down cover, you have a base, and you have a corner of the map, which means you don't have to look around on so many different angles to re-engage targets. You can really just spray from your turret, and from a psychological or mental perspective, it makes the game easier to focus and deal with, because you don't have to worry about what's behind you so much, right? So just keep in mind that this spot distance is harder to spot than from the other side. However, also keep in mind that there are more shots available to take from this side on the other side than the other side. I hope that makes sense when I say that. So essentially what I'm saying is crossing from the north spawn to A is much safer than crossing from the south spawn to A. But it can be done from the south spawn. However, it is noticeably more dangerous. However, that doesn't mean just completely abandon it altogether. I'm just letting you know that that is at your own risk. Now, another important thing to do on this map is that if you are playing the D side, the most important spot I think for mediums is going over here. And this provides good hull down cover. You can take an Object 140, a 62A, a 121, a 121B, which is what I have been playing recently, and just working this small little ridge right here. As you can see, this slopes down like this, providing nice hull down cover. But remember, you can't go too far out or else you will get penned. So, really slight angle, and then pop out, pop back as you fire. Really good stuff that's easy to do. Now, if you're in a bat chat, this is actually a decent spot for competitive, is going to these bushes. There's something that exists on the other side as well for this, but just going to these bushes allows you to spot early. If there's people crossing in this area, you will be able to see them, and just giving you some early vision. Remember, if you're in a bat chat or any light tank and you see a bunch of heavies crossing, you should or if you think that they're going to be coming, keep your butt of your tank pointed at them so you can easily make an escape instead of trying to turn and then run and having a longer exposure time or the possibility that you will get spotted, and then having to try and turn when you get spotted is very, very bad. A few other interesting things about Canal are that resetting bases is uber important. If you can fire HE to reset bases, it will pay off in the long run. Now, I'm not saying spam HE. That's not what I'm saying at all. But sometimes a nice cheeky HE shot, if you don't know where they are necessarily, if you can't necessarily see the cap, if you can reset bases, it is so important, because keep in mind that there are 4 caps, and if people get 3 caps or 4 caps right on you, the points tick up extremely fast. So you don't want cap pressure to build too quickly, because when that happens, then you're forced to make decisions that you don't necessarily want to make. Now, common sniping spots, I would say, are up here. If you're in a tank destroyer and someone wants to spot the bush right near that house in front of you, or the building, the factory, you just go up here, and you're able to get shots when they cross here, when they cross there, and when they cross there. That's really at your discretion, especially if you're in a tank destroyer that has a longer reload. It may be wise for you to shoot here and here instead of here and there. But just a lot of good stuff here. This is really useful for tanks like the Grill and 268, who can get up here quite quickly and have the alpha to deal a significant amount of damage. Something else that I would say is decently important, but I don't really use this too often, is the spots up here. These are okay. I can't even get up here from this side, or I'm sure you can, but my poor driving did not did not compensate for the terrain. Anyways, you can get up back here in the spawn. This is decently effective, but I wouldn't say it's a go-to. You can see people across. If there's a bridge fight, which I wouldn't say happens too often, this is a great spot to be at. But, you know, you're liable to get spotted, and you just don't really have enough shots back here, in my opinion. So it's always better to use this as a secondary position, unless there is some niche reason that you should be back here. Something else on the other side, you know, I'm talking about sniper spots right now. I'm just trying to say things as they come to my mind. So for other sniper spots that you can use, there is one that exists on this side. There aren't many on the A side for this spawn, but up here you can really do good work. I still can't drive correctly, but the only way I've been able to make it work is by going up this way. You can get up here in most tanks, even in the Jagdpanzer E100, so it's not a question of whether this is a light tank or not. Every tank can get up here. Some will be spotted earlier than others, though, and some may have a more difficult time getting down. But if you're here in like a bat chat, I've sat up here in a Leo before and just been able to pick people off with high DPM before. It's quite disgusting what you're able to do up here. And if there's tanks on the other side, you know, coming around that corner right there that I'm firing at, they won't be able to spot you if you have good camouflage or if you have a camo net. I've sat up here in the Tier 7 American tank destroyer, the T-25-2, which, by the way, is the better one, and you will be able to just pound people from a turret in camouflage and not be spotted. Once they get to about this location, then you will, but I'm just using that as a base from experience. I'm not really sure on the distance. It says right there is 177 meters, but I don't really know their view range, what they're using in terms of optics or a camo net, and I know that I was running a camouflage net, and at the time, I think a level 3 or level 4 camouflage crew skill. But there's a good spot there for you if you so choose to use it. Another decent spot is to go up here. This is something that you can do, to go up this way and then go all the way back here. You can get some really nice shots across there at A and B. I'm sorry that the battle cut out, but I'm sure that if you just kind of replay it back and pause it to where it says the battle finished, you'll be able to see the kinds of shots that you'll be able to get. Another good thing you can do on Canal are long flanks and trying to get through the enemy's spawn, but again, that is kind of dangerous and your team really needs to be able to hold on. So, oh, I forgot to mention one more tank destroyer spot that is quite important. I would say that if you're trying to catch the enemy team crossing and you're in a 183 or a 268 or 263, right, and you don't want to go to the A cap, you can sit back here in this bush like this, and you'll be able to catch them crossing in between this rock and that mound, and then again right here. So you'll have about 2 to 3 shots to just absolutely pound enemies, given that you don't detract them. Now, if you detract them, of course, that will take time for them to repair their tracks if they don't have a repair kit. Even if they do have a repair kit, they still have to accelerate again up to top speed, which means you are getting more shots across. Now, of course, the best sniping spot in the whole map, I would say, is back up here. This is really good for tanks like the Waffle Tractor and the Grill, which have amazing gun elevation. As you can see with the LTTB, I can't even get the gun up enough to be able to shoot the tanks at C and the tanks at B. You can also look all the way out into the corners. As long as you stay in camouflage, you will be okay. If you don't necessarily have the gun elevation, like the Borsig, you can go on one of these mounds right here. They exist on both sides of this corner. So there's one right here where I'm standing, and then the other one is right there. So they each have a tree on them, and what you can do is sit up here and it will give you enough of an angle to be able to shoot at C. As you can see, I'm able to hit the C area quite comfortably, but also keep in mind that when you're on one of these corners, you are unable to cover the other side reliably. So this is why tanks with great gun elevation, primarily the Waffle Tractor or the FV-183, are so powerful in this corner as they are able to fire unspotted. It says a quick note right here to remind you that you'll be able to see B from this side, but getting shots at C is just a little bit more difficult. Actually, I would say that this is the better spot to sit at than this one, but as you can see, the other side is only able to get shots at the C cap, whereas the B cap, you just don't have the gun elevation in most vehicles. Now, another common move that I'm starting to see people do on Canal is that heavy tanks are starting to go down into the valley on Supremacy like it's Encounter, except they're not going to the Encounter cap. Now, the Encounter cap is where that rock is over there that I'm looking at. But what they'll do is they'll go down this alleyway and try and catch the enemy before they cross in this location here. Now, if they can get to this location like this, if you're at an IS-7, you are almost unbreakable in this location as you're in a nice hull down position and you're able to poke your turret, fire across, and deal massive amounts of damage, or just rack it up in terms of damage. Now, what this also does is that it spots everybody and it keeps them spotted. So if you have tank destroyers, you really help them out, because then the other team is just kind of locked in over there if they try and go A, and you've essentially caught them. This also works on the other side as well, and you can come up this way. If you're on the north spawn and you're driving, this gap right here, so if you come this way and you cross down into the valley, you can come up like this, and if you're in an IS-7 or even an IS-4, you can abuse some really nice terrain right here. This also allows you to use the terrain like this and be able to put shots at tank destroyers, medium tanks who are at the pipes trying to spot, and just do a world of hurt on the enemy team. Canal is a very large map. I don't feel like I've even gone over everything. Now, there are a few other spots, but they do require pushes from other tanks, and it means that you need teammates willing to help you get to boost you to certain spots. But I'm not going to show those, as for public games and rating games, I don't think anyone will be going out of their way to push you up a hill for about a minute, right? Or some of them even require 2 people to do that. But regardless, I'm showing you the ones that you can most accessibly use to make it effective. Now, a really common question on this map is that if you go to the cap side, or if the enemy team goes to the cap side, and this is Encounter, and you go to the D side, how are you able to kill people in the cap? Well, there's a few ways to do it. I mean, yes, you can go over here, and yes, you can go over there. Those are 2 of the most frequently used options as they come onto the flanks of the cap circle and are able to shoot. But then again, you're getting spotted by tank destroyers. So in order to get not spotted by tank destroyers, I'd rather drive through the middle and just charge the Encounter cap circle. And the reason why I'm doing this is because it puts me out of the range or the vision, or at least makes it hard with all of these truss bridges to prevent the tank destroyers from shooting me. And granted, even if there's someone in the cap and looking at me, let's say a mouse, I'd rather take 460 from a mouse than 640 from a gorilla or 1300 from a 183. So I would say that through that river is the safest way to go, but keep in mind when I say safest, there really is no safe way to approach the cap once the tank destroyers are set up. Now, an important thing, or I keep saying an important thing, but always a good thing to keep in mind with Canal is that you just don't want one base. Getting this close, getting your close cap is very important, or if you go to the other side and grab the base, getting the other person's close cap is important. So if I'm on this side, if I'm starting on the south side, I want to get to the A side, and I want to get C as well, but I also want to get B, because if I can cap B, and which is relatively close in terms of its relation to A, then I'm really set in terms of points, because even if they cap C, I'll still have point advantage at that time. Now, the same applies for the north spawn. If you want to get the D cap, right, you can also go to the B cap, but you also want the C cap if you go to the D cap. And that's for the reason that the D cap is closer to the C cap than the D cap is closer to the B cap. So just try to keep those things in mind. That's a very advanced tactic for trying to do that. So I would say for like the basic players, just focus on one base, and if you have questions, feel free to ask, and I will try and explain that further. Anyways, I really think that's all for Canal. It's about getting bases. Bases are actually pretty darn important because it's such a large map, and as points tick up, heavies lose their effectiveness when they have to drive all the way around trying to kill tanks and cap bases. So for encounter, always play the encounter circle side, the cap circle side. It will pay dividends most of the time. I mean, I can probably count on two hands the amount of times I have lost a public game when my team has gone the encounter cap side and have set up. Kind of the same thing with Middleburg, right? If you go to the hill and you take the hill, you can count on one hand the amount of times you've lost when you've taken the hill, right? It's not very often. You really have to screw up for them to win, which, I mean, with the teams these days is not too large of an ask, but you know what I mean, right? At least play the odds in your favor. Anyways, guys, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that content, please hit that like button and subscribe. And if you didn't, please leave your constructive criticism in the comment section. As always, I appreciate the opportunity to share my passion with you today, and I hope to see you next time.